Hello everybody, I'm Kat, and I have another wrap-up for you guys. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to upload a video last Thursday. I really just wasn't feeling well enough to film a video and edit it and upload it by Thursday. I'm sure you can still tell that I'm recovering from a cold by my voice. I apologize for that. This is a new segment on my channel that I just started this year, where every 5-ish books I update you guys on the books I've read recently instead of doing monthly wrap-ups. So the very first book I'm going to talk about is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. This is the first book in the Shatter Me trilogy, and it follows this 17-year-old girl named Juliet. She has this lethal touch. She touches anybody, she automatically kills them. The government has kept her locked up in a cell for most of her life, and the book takes off right when she gets a roommate, and romance ensues. I was actually pleasantly surprised by this book. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, because this book is really overhyped on BookTube, especially with the latest installment that just came out a couple weeks ago. I really liked the action. I'm excited to see where some of the character arcs are going. There were two issues I had with it. The first one being I never got attached to the characters. I really hoped that I'd get attached to at least one of them, but I never did, and the writing style was a bit much at some points. I actually have a full spoiler-free review where I discuss this book, so if you want to check out all of my full spoiler-free thoughts, that'll be linked down below and on the screen as well if you want to check that out. But I actually really enjoyed this book and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I actually DNF'd was The 100 Lies of Lizzy Lovett by Chelsea Sidoti. This book is basically about this really popular girl goes missing. This one girl who has barely interacted with her all of a sudden starts getting interested in why she disappeared and wants to become invested in the case without admitting that she wants to become invested in this case. So let me just talk about some of the issues I had here. I was really disappointed in this book because this book was pretty hyped up a year ago. People read it and reviews went up and they liked it, and I was hoping I would like it, but that obviously didn't happen. The main character, oh my god, I hated her. She was horrible. She was obviously interested in Lizzy's case, but she kept lying to herself and being like, oh, it's just my curiosity. Sweetie, you want to know more about this case. This is all on you. No one's forcing you to investigate, alright? And the reason Lizzy goes missing is never fully explained, and that kind of annoyed me. I don't know, I kind of wanted a bigger explanation, but there really isn't, so I ended up DNFing it. You'll notice in this wrap-up that I read a lot of mediocre books. The next book I read was Lord of the Flies by William Golding. So I read this book for school. It's about this group of British boys from the ages of 6 to 12 that get deserted on this island, and it's basically about how they survive. And oh my god, I hated this book so much. I don't know if reading for school had to do with it, but I have read books for school that I actually really enjoyed, like To Kill a Mockingbird and Animal Farm. This is one of the worst books I've ever read. It's up there with The Book Thief. If you're new here, I'm not a huge fan of The Book Thief, okay? I'm sorry, I just didn't like it, and I really wanted to, but I just didn't. And this book is just like The Book Thief, the level of I actually probably dislike this one more. The writing was extremely difficult to get into. It wasn't hard to read because the writing itself was pretty simple. It was hard to get into, and it was hard to imagine this island. I just felt like I was reading words and there wasn't even a story. He would constantly describe the island instead of what the boys were actually doing, and I kind of got tired of the luscious leaves of the palm trees. I want to know what the boys are up to, Oh, and the boys were horrible characters. I hated every single one of them, except 2 that I actually kind of liked, but I hated every single one of them. None of them were even remotely likable, for the exception of 2 boys who were okay. I was really disappointed because quite a few people in my life have told me I was gonna love this book. I'm really disappointed in it because this is one of the worst books I've ever read. I gave this book 2 stars for the 2 characters that I actually kind of liked because they were the only stars in this book in my eyes. Okay, so this next one is kind of a bit controversial. I've already talked about 2 books that I've already couldn't stand this month. And this book, I liked it, okay? But I was disappointed in it. And that book is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I'm a huge fan of John Green. I love his books. Paper Towns is one of my my all-time favorite books. I just remember having so much fun reading it. Reading this book just didn't feel like a John Green book. It didn't feel the way Paper Towns felt, or Looking for Alaska felt, or even Tifios. It was so different that it just didn't seem like something he would write. The writing, of course, felt like him, and a couple of the characters felt like him. Like the rest of the book, it wasn't a signature John Green book to me. It didn't help that I kind of went into it expecting it to be kind of like Paper Towns, but with some OCD representation in it, but that wasn't what it was like at all. Her best friend, Daisy, is the worst character John Green has ever written. Say what you will about Margot, Daisy is the worst character John Green has ever written. She is horrible, absolutely horrible. She's a horrible best friend. She's just a horrible person in general. She is horrible, and you can say what you will about Margot and who else? Who's the other character that everyone hates in his books? Alaska. You can say what you will about those two. Nope. They don't even live up to how horrible Daisy is. And that Michael character, he was just like a plot device. Like, I don't think he says more than 10 words in this novel. He's just there to kind of bring it all together at the end, and he's honestly kind of useless. Speaking of the plot, what the actual heck? It literally stops 2/3 of the way through the book. And then it's as if he remembered that he dropped the plot and, you know, quickly wrapped it up at the end. Overall, I was just very disappointed in this novel. I was hoping to love it more than some of his other books that I've read. Like, I was hoping it would be one of my new favorites of his, but instead it's now my least favorite of his. And I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. We're gonna take a short little break from reviewing mediocre books because I've got a great one here. Warcross by Marie Lu. Words cannot describe how much I love this book. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Definitely like the best book I've read this year, even though, you know, it's mid-March, but it's gonna be one of the best books I've read this year. It's gonna be on my favorites list. This book is everything. I actually read part of it for the readathon by Zoe that Zoe over at Read by Zoe put on, and I participated in it. I have a whole vlog of me reading it and dying inside because it literally blew my mind. I've never really described a book as awesome, but this book is awesome. I loved it so much. It's so fantastic. I highly recommend this book if you have not picked it up. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. If you want to see my readathon by Zoe vlog, that'll be linked down below and on the screen as well, so if you want to check that out, you can watch as I read along and it begins to slowly blow my mind. Back to the mediocre books, and this is actually the last book I'm going to talk about today. By Your Side by Casey West. The only word I can use to describe this book is a joke. I kept laughing at it, not because it was funny, but because it was just a joke. It was a joke of a book. Now, I have read 2 of Casey West's other books. One of them I actually really enjoyed. Another one I didn't really like as much, and this book I like least of all. Okay, so the book was like really cliche with the whole like good girl, bad guy vibe that it had. You know, sometimes you just need a cliche book to just read in between books, you know? Like, you just need that one book that you know you're probably not gonna like, but you're gonna read it anyway because you don't want to fall into a reading slump. Like, that's how I would describe this book for me. It's not necessarily a book that would help you get out of a reading slump, but I would say it's a book that would prevent a reading slump. So there's this whole good girl, bad guy plot, but then it takes this huge turn. I honestly thought it was going to be about kids that are stuck in a library because that's how it's been advertised. This book is like 340 pages or something like that. So I'm thinking for like at least 300 pages they're gonna be in the library, right? Like, it only makes sense. They're only in the library for 150 pages. The book should have ended there. This book should not have continued on for another like 200 pages. It should have stopped at page 150 when they finally got out. It was ridiculous. But that's not the real issue I had with it. For the majority of the book, this book is like a really bad gender-swapped version of If I Stay. There's a guy in a coma and there's this girl who's kind of waiting for him to get out of it. If I wanted to read that story, I would have just reread If I Stay because it's a much better written story. I didn't really need to see If I Stay again in a gender-swapped version, but overall this book was just a hot mess of a book. It was like a horrible version of If I Stay, and if you do want to pick it up, I'd recommend just picking up If I Stay instead. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars only because I just kept laughing at it because it just reminded me so much of If I Stay that I was just like dying of laughter. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars just because I enjoyed laughing at it. I probably would have given it 1 star if I didn't. Alright, and that is it for this video. Let me know down below below if you've read any of these books, or let me know some of the books that you've read recently because I'd love to know. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post videos every Thursday, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!